Well done, you. We're doing this first.
Yes.
Yeah. Are we all right?
Yep.
Yep. Tēnā koutou, kua hui mai nai, kia tēnei whare wahi, kia te kororo, kia te whakarongo, kia nā kaupapa o tā tātou hui. No mai, tell her not to swear.
Sorry about that.
No mai, toti mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Mai nā iwi, tātou tātou e. Tu tira mai nā iwi, tātou tātou e. Pai a te maramatanga, me te aroha ina iwi, kia katapatahi, kia katahi rā. Tātou tātou e. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora tātou, no mai, haere mai. Welcome everybody. We are minus 3 members. We're one of the smaller boards, but we are minus 3 members, all of them are sick. And our apologies for them. It's great to see you. Please do have a cup of tea. And we look forward to hearing from you today. We start with, note that it's being live streamed. Oh, I'm going to take this. The meeting's being live streamed. So I'm the one that's always inappropriate. So just what you might want to watch out what you're saying. And also we've got 3 of our people coming in on over the stream. And so we're going to do a round of introductions and introduce ourselves to you, starting with Kia.
Kia ora tātou, ko aroha nui Grace Tokuinga. I'm the Community Governance Manager for Spreydon-Cashmere.
Ata my name's Carolyn Potter. I'm the board chair, and I'm going to hand over to the guys online, starting with you, Callum.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Callum Moore tōku ingoa. I'm the board member. My name's Callum Moore. I'm the board member for Spreydon.
Lee.
Morena, I'm Lee Sampson. I'm the deputy chair based in Cashmere.
And Mal.
Kia ora, Melanie Coker. I'm the councillor for Spreydon.
I just want to say to Callum and Lee that Melanie is the only one that sounds sick.
Sorry, Carolyn.
Let's just hope I don't give you evidence.
Kia ora, Amy Hart. I'm the board advisor. And just a reminder to everyone, please turn your mics on when you're speaking.
Morena, I'm Tim Scandrett. I'm the councillor for Cashmere.
Thanks, everybody. Apologies. We don't take apologies for people online, do we?
No,
They're press on. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Has anybody got any financial flow coming from any decision we make today? No.
The only,
Yeah.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just thinking, Mary Hill Crossing is around the corner from my house, and my daughter will use it in about 18 months' time, I suppose. So I don't know. Do I have a conflict?
I think there's immense corruption there. I can tell. But we just note that you're there. Yeah. And confirmation of previous minutes. Can I have a mover? Thanks, Tim. Seconder. Thank you. Any changes? I've read them and they seem fine to me. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions carried. Oh, sorry, Lee, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just acknowledging.
Okay. Public forum. John Doyle Sims, you are up. Just sit there and note whether your thing's on or not. Just press the green, potentially green button. Is it got right there?
Yes, this one.
Okay, John, you've got 5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes, but I'm quite kind.
Oh, okay. Can I take my mask off when I'm presenting?
Yep. Don't breathe on him.
Kia ora, my name's John Doyle Sims. I'm a Cashmere High School student. And this year in technology, we are creating a project that has something to do with a stream. It's a very broad context. And for my project, I've decided to work on the stream in school, Waihoro, to create better access to the waterway so that students can use it, so that our Sustainability Council can use it, so that we can all have, well, we can all value it more, because we're pretty lucky to have such a great resource. And I don't think we truly value it enough at Cashmere. Anyway, can I change the slide with this?
Yeah, I might have to do it.
Is this
before you.
point? I like laser point. This one.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the location. As you can see, that's a bird's eye. There's a satellite image of Cashmere. And if you have a look, just how do I get this to point?
Just that top larger button.
Oh.
Is that here?
That's okay. I'll just.
Yeah, it should be this. That
Oh.
one with the red on it.
This
right
one.
there. Yeah.
So here we have Cashmere, and just here is where we're thinking of putting it, opposite the amphitheatre, just here.
Mhm.
And if you've been to Cashmere High School, you know this area used to be the conductive ed, and then it got demolished, and they've decided to build an amphitheatre there. And now we're thinking of building this little cantilever platform. And here on the left is just like a functional model. I've got my mates to hold a board just to see where it would be, of the approximate size and location of where it would be. Oh yeah, and at the moment you can see there's a couple flax bushes on the bank, but they will be replanted by the Sustainability Council to be original native bush that used to be in the area.
I love the Ash Grove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Who it benefits? Well, it benefits the school, students who want to spend more time with the stream. It benefits Sustainability Council. They now have a better place to test water quality. And I think this helps to ultimately improve the quality of the environment of the stream. We've also got the Māori department. We're working on designing. So the design of and you'll see this later on, of the jet of the cantilever platform will be of a mokihi shape, which is like made of harakiki and roko just tied together. Kind of, they used to use it to travel up and down streams all through Canterbury Plains. And the name of the stream that we're working on is Waimokihi. So it ties in very well with this. There's also, the shape also gives it better, it means that water can pass through it much easier, more aerodynamic, if you like, because it improves, well, because of the shape. Yeah, next slide. Oh yeah, so here's my first one of many, well, this is my last final drawing of it. And here you can see, this is the front view. And this line here is the bottom of the stream. And about this faint line here is about where the water sits. These screws here are a technology called ground screws, where they simply, if you go back to the, here, I can do it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so those are the screws that he's putting in, and he just comes out, this is a demonstration, he just comes out with his tool, and he just screws them in, and it's got incredibly minimal impact to the environment. Everything just sits above the ground. There's no digging.
Who paid for that?
He came in, did it for free.
Did he?
Yeah.
Who is he?
Stop Digging. They're a Swedish company, and they develop these screws. And he was just like, oh,
And you went and saw him and asked him to do it for free?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I wonder what I could ask him to do for free.
Wow, I'll tell you what, I've got an opportunity for you.
Go ahead.
Well, because we need 4 screws, and that's only 1 screw.
Oh, very pointed.
Yeah. And yeah, it's insane. These things, I won't need it because it's a big long document of independently verified to have these insane lateral compression and tension forces. So if we go back to here, you can see that here's a better view where there's 4 screws connected to 2 beams that go down to this mokahi shaped platform, cantilever platform. And yeah, they have insane tension and lateral forces. They're well, I think I calculated the amount of, like, if we have, say, 4 teenage boys trying to jump onto this thing from wherever, it would take about, like, it would be 0.06% of the force that it would be required to move one of these screws an inch. And there's 4 of them. It's very strong.
Yeah.
And incredibly minimal impact to the ground. Yeah, and so with this meeting, I've been needing to talk to someone called Belinda Margetts, who is, I think she works in the council as something to do with ecology and waterways. And I need to get her approval to press forward with the project.
Yep.
And so I was hoping that with this meeting, I would be able to get I'd be able to get in contact with her.
Yeah.
To move forward with the project.
Well, my kids went to Cashmere and I didn't know the Waimokihi stream was through there. I know the Waimokihi stream off Milton Street,
Oh, yeah.
Frankly, where all the ducks are and all the foreign ducks are, but I didn't know it went through Cashmere.
Yeah.
How amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing. And how much is this likely to cost you in total?
We're thinking about $5,000 in total.
What? Oh my God, I'd have to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah.
Well, I think it's a really good move to talk to our waterways, because that we want to try and keep them as open as possible. But I think your design's really clever, and it's with that in mind, keeping it, because we have had issues in the past with private landowners, building things over the creeks, and they look wonderful. But when we have an event, which we've had quite a few, and we seem to be getting more, it's a very it's in the forefront of the council's thinking about how it affects other people on the creek. So that'd be great, and I'm sure that through Amy we can get that.
Yeah.
That's well put.
Yeah.
Just one tiny wee thing. The structure is designed to be temporary. So even though it is on education grounds,
I understand.
it is designed to, if you like, go on a journey and move further down the stream, maybe even out to the estuary.
Not too soon. I do understand what you're saying about the more that the students can come to understand the stream, the more they'll look after it.
Yeah.
And before, I would have imagined that in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the Cashmere students would have treated it as a ditch.
Yeah.
And I do understand what you're about, and we really appreciate it. Have you got any questions?
Pardon me, very clear and very solid work. I was just wondering, actually, if you'd done any modelling or looked at what would look like in a flood event, in terms of how those ground screws perform, particularly if just thinking about the bank, if it becomes very wet.
Yeah.
How they would perform in those circumstances.
So the entire structure is supported solely on the ground screws, which are anchored into the ground. The back ones are about 2 meters back. So any damage to the bank will not affect the mokahi because it is so anchored to the back. And yeah, if you won't be able to see it, but the flood level, recently we did have a minor flooding event, and it only came up to about, this is the top of the mokahi, and it was a foot down was where this flood level was. Mind you, that was about peak flooding. So it won't actually go above the water, above the top of the mokahi.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He's 30 or 40 years younger than us, and he said foot. It's about a foot down.
30 centimeters.
Makes me think we're not entirely out of the picture. Anybody, Lee or Melanie, do you want to ask a question? I think it's self-evident. thank you very much for coming. What we do now is we shift you back into the seat so that you're no longer the crowd, and we discuss it, and then you'll probably be hearing from us in due course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, John, good on you for coming. Good on you, and good on you for having a go.
Thank you.
You know, it's great, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I've got a proposal here that we request staff advice on the prepared project, which will undoubtedly go to Belinda. And I'll ask especially that when the advice comes back that we get to hear about, I know we always do. It's just that we'd like to keep an eye on it, and remind us that we asked John that we want to attend the open.
I should have actually asked this as a question, but should we check if there is a time frame? I'm just thinking about the school year.
Yep, time frame.
I'm gonna preach it to the board of trustees at the end of this term,
Yeah.
and then hopefully start building during the holidays. So I think that's about much later on, kind of more September, but broad scheme of things, none of that happens, it's okay, because broad scheme of things, latest possible is January to start building.
Because you know that September in council terms
Yeah.
is rocket speed, rocket speed.
I'm well aware.
But without joking too much about that, council really does have to take notice of its expenditure and has to be responsible for it, which means the council has to be involved as well. The council, you know. So there is a process, but thank you for that. That gives us some understanding. So you've heard what we're going to do, and we're putting it up. Have we put it up?
Yeah, so just very simply that you'd like to request staff advice on the proposed project. Does that capture it?
Yeah, and what about funding?
We'll get the advice first.
Yeah, the advice first, yeah. Okay, about the advice first. So you will hear from us, and we won't forget, we promise that. So the resolution is, oh no, it's a recommendation so that we don't have to have a vote on it, do we?
Yeah.
So that's the advice that we're getting. Thanks, John, for coming again. And over the page, presentation of petitions. There are no petitions. We're starting, and the agenda's switched around, as you know. We're starting with Maryhill Avenue, Kia Crossing, Georgia Green. Hi, Georgia.
Hi. So I've got Ashley with me, who's the school's community travel advisor. Yeah, the first one is a Kia crossing down Maryhill Ave. Fairly straightforward. If there were any questions about it.
I have some concerns about this, and I'm probably alone in it, so don't worry about it too much. They used to have a Kia crossing on Sparks Road,
Yeah.
Hoon Hay School, and they made the decision or recommendation or whatever that it become a lights crossing and didn't involve the students anymore in a Kia.
Yeah.
Maryhill is a very narrow street. I'm not sure it's appropriate to have a full gung-ho Kia crossing with all the complications of volunteers attached to it for a tiny narrow street next to the school. It won't even benefit Our Lady of Assumption kids, because the entranceway is directly into, it's almost a lane. It's not even a street almost, it's almost a lane. And I just don't know if it's worthy of the full palaver and the cost of a Kia crossing. I know that parents there are informally taking shifts to get the kids across on the street. Yeah, but let me see what the others say on this issue. Tim, did you want to say something?
Yeah, look, sometimes these smaller streets can actually be more dangerous, you know,
I
like
know.
the kids coming out of parked cars, etc. And one just takes one car to be traveling a bit faster. I think if and you'll be able to answer this with regards to if the school's committed to, because that's the key to it, the crossing like this, they have to be committed to it. So I have no problem with that.
Okay. Have you got anything? You want any comment? No. Okay. On the table, yes, Mel, go for it.
I've got 2 questions. I forgot what they are. One was about the part that's a no stopping restriction at the moment. I've had people comment to me that not all parents have been obeying those signs, I guess. So do you see that this will help that situation?
Yep.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, and I forgot my other question, but anyway.
Lee, do you have anything?
I'm just wondering if we have a very rough idea of how much of the roll has to go north, how much goes south, but it's not critical. I was just trying to get a feel for it, really.
Do you know?
Yeah, no, I don't know that, unfortunately, just because they kind of go out different ways. I do know that information slightly from their school travel plan, but they do, they are trying to encourage, because we've taken a lot of that parking off on Sparks Road on one side of the road with the Sarka Way. They are having a lot of parking issues on Sparks Road, and they're trying to encourage people to use that Mary Hill entrance as well to kind of help spread the load.
Gotcha.
But yeah, in terms of the crossing itself, both schools did come to us asking for a crossing on Mary Hill, or some sort of improvement to that area, because parents were just stopping in those no parking between these times restrictions, as you said, Melanie. So yeah, I guess you can't park. Oh, I hope they won't park on top of a curb build out. Hope. Well civilized over here. So yeah, so the kind of schools have come to us and really asked for it, and we've got about 100 students crossing over that road in the afternoon, so it is a good sheer number of students trying to cross that very narrow, where parents will just park on the yellow lines and things like that. And it is getting really hard for those volunteers that do run that kind of crossing, informal crossing they've got there. So yeah, they've reached out for help pretty much. So we're just trying to do that. But yeah, both schools were very committed to running the crossing together. In the end, it was just decided that Hoon Hay would run it, kind of just because they're a bit of a larger school, and also OLA help run the lights, because they do some lights work still there.
Yeah. Is there when do you turn down a request for a Kia crossing?
Originally, we didn't have the funding for these two, but yeah, the funding was available, so we'd obviously love to say yes to everyone, but it just depends on pedestrian numbers and whether it's available in the budget.
So the 100 that come out of the school, and I didn't know it was that many, the 100 that come out of the school on the day is really a deciding figure for you people.
Well, that's 100 crossing the road, so more than 100 come out.
That's right. Yeah. So that was that probably sounds like a deal breaker to you, the numbers, I mean.
Yeah, it's the sheer numbers that use that back road anyway, as well as those number of people crossing.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to put the resolution on the Kia crossing for Mary Hill Avenue. Can I have a mover? Tim, thank you. Can I have a second?
Tim and Melanie might want to.
Melanie, do you want a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Melanie's second. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. And I voted for it. I did. Yeah. So stay right where you are. Rowley, which is an exceptional one, because it didn't have the numbers. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
I belatedly should declare an interest. My grandkids go there. And it is so true. They're both the kind of kids that would. And so I'm very familiar with this project. The principal stands outside the gate night and morning and shakes the hand or claps the hand of every kid that goes into the school and comes out of the school, except my grandchildren, who spend their time dodging him. And he is a most assiduous parent, and there's now assiduous principal, and there is now parents taking duty there to get kids across, aren't they? Yeah. So can you describe this for the board?
Yeah, so this one involves a little bit more work. We are extending the curb a little bit to make the crossing a bit further back from the intersection.
Yeah.
Just make it a bit safer for the kids. And yeah, was there anything else that?
Well, we know it doesn't meet the rules and the criteria. So what was the deciding factor?
The deciding factor was mainly that a lot of kids were walking to school by themselves and they were quite young. They were also taking their younger siblings to school and they were having to cross Rowley Ave by themselves. So yeah, it was mainly on the safety front.
And I think there's also a social aspect to it as well, to give some of the older kids some sense of leadership and an opportunity to really look after their younger students in their school. So yeah, I think it will have more than just a safety improvement kind of for the school in the area.
I think you're absolutely right. It's good to see you here, incidentally. Yeah, no, just because we often refer schools to you,
Yes,
but
we do.
we hardly ever see you. So it's good to see you.
I've got 3 things today, so it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all go.
So, is there any further discussion? Any discussion online?
Just the comment with regards to, we have been concerned as a board with regards to the changes to Lincoln Road and perhaps the possibility of raised or increased running here. So I think this is really timely.
Tim, I forgot about that. You're absolutely
Oh,
right.
good sometimes, mate.
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity for us to be proactive instead of reactive to the
Yeah.
area. So.
Because we have discussed with the changes on Lincoln Road the fact that there will be rat running down Rowley, and I've completely forgot about it. So it's entirely appropriate. Can I have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Mel. And who's second? Is that you, Callum?
Yep, it's me.
We can't see you online, so I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you before, but
Yep.
we can't see you at the moment on the screen. So Mel's moved, Callum seconded. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against,
Aye.
abstentions, carried. Thank you. So, and now we're on, thank you very much, both of you. I feel like saying, though it's the end of the year, of course, and it's election time, so we can't, but I'd recommend to this board that you come back and talk about, what is it? Yeah, yeah. Just put it on the list. DRF board projects, Jay, Heather, and what's her name? Oh,
We're doing that later.
oh, we're doing that because they're the person speaking to the board couldn't come because she had kids to get to school, you see. Thank you. Board projects. Hi, guys. Watanabe's looking at you.
Just by comment, the board has previously workshopped some time ago now, which projects they would like put up for this year. These ones are the ones that will need budget before the end of this board's term. And in future, there may be some adjustments made post transitions, but we felt that these were the amounts that would be suitable to start off the financial year with, so that we do have budget for demand that would come into those board projects.
When I was at the council the other day and presented, it was noticeable that other boards had an off-the-ground fund, and one of them at least called it an off-the-ground fund. And it's been a bit slack lately for us, hasn't it? And I just wonder if we could do some extra advertising for it, because I always think of it as one of the most valuable funds, because it gives more than its bucks, doesn't it? It's got more bang to it because it's meant to be for fun. So I'm just wondering if we could put some publicity out on it through the board newsletter, and also perhaps even we could do a couple of pamphlets so that we can leave some things behind? Would that be too much work?
Certainly.
So that we could advertise it, make it the easy one to get so that people can just have that tiny moment of fun. Tim. Oh, sorry, what's her name?
I was gonna say, it's probably just worth the comment as well. Like a few of our funds were pretty quiet over the last year due to obvious reasons for COVID. So we're
Yeah.
noticing an increase in particular in sort of YDF applications. So the hope would be for off the ground as well. That
Yeah.
as people, get out and about and do more things, that would be well
Yeah.
patronised.
But what I'm saying is after 2 years of COVID, some of our groups won't even remember it, but whereas in the past they knew all about it. So if we could just give it a boom. Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
I guess just to monitor it in the future, if we're getting fewer applications than we had previously, and depending on how it grows and how popularity rekindles, I'm wondering maybe we could look at raising it slightly just to make it more attractive. That could be something.
Well, we did raise it last time to 300.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it may not, because if it turns out that over the next, say, 18 months, that it's fewer people are using it, maybe we could look at, because it wouldn't change the overall budget because fewer people are using it. But if we raise it slightly to 350, then it may be a wee bit more attractive.
Yeah.
So just something to perhaps to monitor. and
Yeah.
look at.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Anything else on Mel, Lee, Callum? You're back, Callum. Hello.
Hi, Carolyn. I just wanted to ask, what's the community events project exactly?
Yeah, so that one's focused in Rowley. So that's the Hoon Hay Fiesta and Hoon Hay.
Okay, cool.
And we're not having the rugby league again.
That is happening at the same time. So the Hoon Hay Fiesta is on Thursday, the 10th of November, and I believe Pacific Series is that same weekend, but they're not crossing over like they have in the past.
Okay. And it's just out of interest, is Sol still running it? I know he's gone.
No, I don't think I think Chanel, who is part of that local community, runs Pacific Series, but obviously the resource centre.
Jeepers, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. But the resource centre is leading the fiesta itself.
Okay. Yeah. Will we do any associated publicity
for the fiesta?
Well, I'd just like to support the rugby league, even if we haven't got much to do with it, if we just associated ourselves with it.
Yep. Chanel is on the fiesta organising committee as well, so like they're sort of well ingrained with the whole fiesta as well. So yeah, we can definitely make sure that we reciprocate.
I'd love you to, because I watched the PNG 2 or 4 years ago, perhaps, Papua New Guinea game. And the poor guys were mostly academics out here to go to Lincoln University, and they hadn't a clue how to play rugby league, and they were getting smashed, but they were very cheerful about it. I'd very much like to go along and see the rugby league, even if it's only for a few minutes. Thank you, Ratane. Is there any other questions people would like to ask? Anything we should know that's different? Because I know this is sort of like recovery stuff, isn't it, in a way?
I guess the interesting aspect of it is that this is kicking off for community board projects really for part of the year. Because then there will be a transition and a new board. So things like re-looking at the criteria or amounts can happen.
Because I'm wondering about summer with your neighbours. I'm just wondering if people are in the mood for organising barbecues with their neighbours without masks on or with masks on. I'm just wondering how they feel out there.
Can I comment there?
Yeah, Mel.
There's been a lot of interaction online about summer with your neighbours. So, Facebook.
Oh, good on you.
So it may be that people are keen. It seems to be.
Yeah.
Heather's been managing that. She's a bit tied up with the next event at the moment, but we can report back to the board on the numbers. But certainly the applications have been coming in. They closed on the 12th.
I just wonder, if it doesn't look great by Christmas, if we could sort of in the high summer, think of a couple of things that we could do, that we could say, here we are again, we're back, or something. If it just looks deadly for another summer, if we could start thinking about here we are again, and saying to people, look, we're here together, and say hello. I don't know. It's just that it seems, I dug out my old posters and things for previous activities, and we had so much going on that sometimes we felt threatened in terms of activities that we had to attend and things that were organised and all of this sort of thing. I'm throwing stuff out at the moment, and I looked at it and thought we just haven't got that level of activity, and people aren't feeling in the mood, and I'm just wondering if we could say, do something spontaneous, even if it was just ice cream and sausage and bread, you know.
I'm following on from what Mel was saying. I think that people are, you know, like people have been kind of cocooned for a while and they really want to get out.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be, people will take it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we move this? The board projects. Is there any other questions of staff or discussion? Anything else you want to mention, staff? Okay. All those in favour, mover and a seconder, sorry. Yep. Thanks, Kier. Seconder, anybody online want to second?
Oh,
No.
Lee, are you seconding?
Happy to.
Okay. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you got the area report now. Sorry, Watanabe. Okay, well, go for it.
Well, the area report is tabled from community governance. There were several projects highlighted. The service awards, which happened today, very successful, a Waihoro-Heathcote River Network AGM, and work progressed on the Somerset Reserve mural.
Yeah, not much to add from the photos that you see attached to that report, but yeah, nice project that we've got through a decent time. So great for those tamariki to be able to have a bit of ownership over that space as well.
Yeah, Waihoro Network. Wouldn't organisations like to have an AGM like that? That was fantastic, amazing actually, and the spirit in the room was fantastic, really alive. But they do great work, so they deserve it. And no other comment on any organisations in the Rohi? Nothing?
Not at the moment.
Everybody going well? Manuka Cottage hasn't set up its regular meetings again, has it?
We can ask.
Ask Heather. Yeah. Okay. And so can I have a mover, please, for the area report? Did any of you online want to ask any questions? Okay. Can I have a mover?
I mean that the mural is looking really good.
Mural.
Mural.
Oh gosh, sorry. Good. Tim's moved. Who's seconded? Kier's seconded. It's okay. Jopes, you're so active. Any further questions? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions carried. Okay. And thank you.
Thank you.
Please, thank you. Elected members information exchange. I'll go online first. Elected members information exchange. So Lee, I'm talking to you.
Come back to me if you can, if that's okay.
Okay, you've got to collect your thoughts. Mel. She's got.
Sorry, I'm in the middle of blowing my nose. I haven't really got anything, to be honest, because I've obviously been going to many places, but I did notice, and I've just sent in a message that someone commented on Facebook about some lilies being planted in the pathway at Barrington Park, the playground. So I'm just finding out about that, but to be honest, I can't actually think of anything unlike my usual self, so yeah.
Callum.
Yep. I went to the first Spreydon Neighbourhood Network meeting that they've had for months. It was a small turnout, but yeah, it was good. Good vibe in the room. I think people were quite happy to be back at Whareora House, and yeah, discussed a lot of the usual topics, including housing intensification. I think they're planning to sign a letter alongside some other residents groups to council around protesting the plan changes. And I sort of told them, you know, what I'm sure they were already aware that, you know, this was something that was plan changes were being made to align with legislation from central government. So, you know, not to get your hopes too high for that, but I think that they already appreciated that. Yeah, trying to think what else they were talking about. Brain's a bit foggy, sorry. Yeah, I might leave it there.
Thank you, Callum. Tim.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. The tuna that got stolen from Farnley Reserve,
Yes.
so the Parks Unit are looking at how they can replace them and ensure how they can reattach them without the risk of being stolen, or maybe they might have to change the material, but they are looking at that now.
They were embedded in concrete.
Oh, the ones on the rocks were real. Yeah, it's people will do what people do. I know then when many moons ago when we went around and we put aluminium grates in the replace them, and a whole lot of people went along and stole them to cash them in. So, and it was done for health and safety because they're heavy grates. But yeah, it was easy to take them out and go and cash them in. So anyway, look, people do what people do. We've just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Cashmere Playground, I got a call and I passed it on to Parks. Cashmere Playground, we've redone the slide, which is fantastic. But at the back, with there's kind of a wee play kind of set up for the little ones, and it needs a wee bit of TLC on the ground and the cushion thing. So I passed that on to Parks. We attended the Summerfield Residents Association, and the same thing there with regards to intensification and concerns. So staff are talking with the chair of that, but we said, you know, like John and a number of our staff did that road show, and it was on Zoom, etc. So rather than going to individuals, which would take far too long, they did a road show about it. I think we've got to be very careful that what the government came to Christchurch and the other tier 1 cities with, and what we're trying to push back, we've got to be really clear that if that fails, the alternative is what was presented to us by government. So I think as elected members, we've got to remind those community groups that if we just say no, walk away, rather than trying to say, hey, actually, let's plan this.
You're talking Three Waters?
No, this is intensification.
Still intensification.
Yeah, so intensification.
Sorry, yeah.
If you look at a map of Christchurch, that was what was Leanne terms the yellow peril. It was just one big lump of yellow, and that was the whole lot. And so we've kind of gone back to try and adjust things and make it more reasonable. It won't be perfect, and it certainly will not be perfect, and we know that. But
what were your priorities? Was it height? That three story in our suburbs?
It's trying to keep our suburbs. It's you know, personally, if you really want my opinion, we're not starting at the very start with the problem with our housing. You know, we have where people can say bring in $15 million to New Zealand and become a resident, then they can go out and buy 30 or 40 houses and put them on Airbnb. That's totally undercutting what we should be doing. If you look overseas, Switzerland, some of the island country, you know, like Samoa, Fiji, etc., you cannot buy land. You can lease it, and if you want to lease it for a longer period of time, that has to be negotiated. We're a small country with a little bit of land. Some countries will limit to a percentage of land. I think around 8 to 10% of it. So yeah, we're not in the game.
But there's also that other business as well, Byron Bay. Only 20% of the housing is allowed to be rental.
Yeah.
And so that retains a sense of community and so on.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have any restrictions like that
We've
either.
absolutely none. And so I think we've really got to wake up to that. But like, beside that, we're trying to do our best, like the character areas, we're trying to protect those, heritage areas. I know in Cashmere that's been reduced to a degree, you can argue rightly, because it's had creep. But yeah,
We don't want to protect the character areas to the extent that there's the posh areas posh areas retain their sense of neighbourhood and the poor areas don't.
I do remember years and years ago on this board, we had a couple come from Addington who had done up a beautiful villa.
Yeah.
And they said, why bother? Because on the north side is a 3-story monstrosity.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's
It
been
is.
for a while.
I agree.
But it's just now going to get. One of the things I think is a real concern, and we should get some more info on it, is the pressure on infrastructure, and that has limited the areas, and that's what we've been pushing back on. And you're looking at Summerfield as an area.
Especially with Christchurch's sewerage, which is flat all the way to the estuary. We don't have natural drainage.
And Melanie's got a hand up, but the other thing is NEWA's new kind of levels, sea rise, etc., which will affect your groundwater. You know, that'll be interesting too.
Exactly.
Melanie's got a
retreat from the beach. Mel.
Sorry, as you've almost turned into a discussion, with Carolyn's comment, one thing to remember with these district plan changes that council's putting forward is they have recognised Evesham and Bewdley, which are 1950s brick homes, as a character area. And I think that that's fantastic to try and keep that area, because, you know, in 50, 100 years, when we look back at it, it will really look like a character area to us now. It doesn't, of course, but it will in the future. So I think, you know, that's not just saying we've got character buildings, which are beautiful old villas and things, but to look at the other eras of the building that have happened in Christchurch.
I agree, but I wish they'd look at Sydney Street, for instance, which has got houses that are 150 years old and houses that are 30 years old and 20 years old. I wish they wouldn't just look at one age because Sydney Street's a lovely street. It's got a real mixture of old villas and new design buildings and so on. It's a great street, and I'd love to maintain those as well. Is that for you, Tim? Okay. Lee.
Just to say that I went to the farmers market on Sunday, obviously just adjacent to where you are now. Seems to be working really well with the concrete bollards. It was really busy, it was vibrant, and it just seemed to be working really well. So just a wee bit of feedback on the farmers market. I have looked at an issue. I know Westmoreland's not part of our patch at the moment, but I am looking at the bus stop on Cashmere Road, just as being a bit proactive there, in terms of what I think is the worst bus stop in Christchurch, which is situated in a drainage brook with no shelter. So if we really want to get people on public transport, it's not the way to start. So I'm just trying to trace that one through as well, and try and be proactive there. And that's probably it from me, team.
I got a long letter from people. What was it you just mentioned, Lee? What was the first thing you just mentioned?
Oh, the farmers market.
Oh, yes, a long letter from people who think that the parking should be retained down there. And it's been redesignated since 2003, that strip. And but can you remember, Lee, or anybody, if there was any timeline on the digging up of the asphalt to restore it to Esplanade
so
quality?
From memory,
100
meters this financial year.
100 meters this financial year.
And then as financial years roll on, they may do more.
That sounds fair enough. And I had a very long letter about the parking that we need along there, and they clearly don't know about the guys who leave that parking and then hoop over the traffic island over the back there. But I had a long letter saying that we need the parking in order for older people to be able to get to the library. And there's an argument there because it's the most popular library in the world. But now that that's been designated Esplanade, it has to be come into grass anyway. So there's not a lot of argument that we can go on about that. Jonathan Hanson has invited me to go down to Spreydon Domain next week at a certain time where they're planting 15 kahikatea trees. Hey, I know, it's so cool.
Are you going to do any planting?
I might just watch the slaves, but I'm so looking forward to it, because that is a planting there that's getting worn out. There was a tree that fell over last week, an absolutely gigantic tree fell over last week within range of the people who have said that they're scared of a tree coming on their roof. It was within range of them. It was right there. And it fell over. I just went down there the next day and it was chopped up. And it was gigantic. So it's clearly reaching the end of its natural life, those trees. And it's great to think that we're going to have kahikatea coming in. Yeah. And I've had quite a few complaints about intensive housing, just like everybody. I really, really wish that they would stop at 2 stories and leave the 3 stories to the real traffic hubs. Yeah. I
mean, look, the argument isn't intensification. The argument is how it's done.
Yeah, it is. Now, I think we may have stopped just in time. Celia. Yes, you've arrived at the exact moment. So if you'd like to, and have we got Anne Scott here? Oh, Celia, can I give you a bit of breathing space and get a cup of tea? Because the reason for that is that Anne's been here a long time, and I know you're together, but I just think for politeness, Anne, you might be the first one I should invite up. Come on. And Anne, you're from Spokes.
I'm from Spokes, Canterbury.
Right.
Just let me get organised, because I've getting into the technology here. So would you like me to?
Go for it. Oh, the process is that because it's between 5 and 10 minutes and then we ask you questions, and then we ask you to sit back on the room, but it's very flexible. Don't worry about it. Okay.
So this is the first presentation I've done on behalf of Spokes.
Yeah.
So kia ora koutou, ko Anne Scott, tōku ingoa, and I'm representing Spokes Waitaha. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. So one of the community outcomes in the Developing Resilience in the 21st Century Strategic Framework is a well-connected and accessible city promoting active and public transport. This proposal really does not address the longer-term issues that pedestrians and other active transport users should be taking priority over vehicles. A number of the submitters have talked about the pedestrian crossings being the preferred solution. I also support this. And we should be looking at examples in various European countries who have successfully changed the way their cities are designed. I'm going to put that aside because I think that's a sort of a long-term kind of.
It's a discussion that we're having all the time.
Yes,
yeah.
I know. And so I'm just going to say one thing. I'm assuming from my comments that the blue lines on the diagram are paint. It's really difficult to tell. So we're living in a city that for decades have built for vehicles. And as a consequence, we're trying to retrofit infrastructure in compromising ways. As the St. Martin's School submission says, this is a step forward to alleviating some of the current risk, but it's not a particularly good solution. It really is a band-aid. The ideal solution would be to replace this with lights. But having said that, this is a 5-way intersection. It's complicated by the petrol station on the corner of Albert Terrace and Centaurus Road, the offset of Armstrong Avenue, the number of educational institutions close by, and the high number of cyclists and pedestrians that use this area. And that is a good news story that we have this, the volume. What we want to do is we want to keep vehicles away from other active transport users as much as possible, make people as visible as possible, and limit the driver distraction. Reducing speed limits is one of the best ways to make this situation better. And I note that the council have said that they are looking at that. So roundabouts are inherently unfriendly for cyclists. You need to be very confident to take the lane as suggested in this proposal. You're highly likely to get crowded out, both on the approach and in the roundabout. by vehicles who believe that they have an exclusive right of way and they consider you just too slow. And for children, that is particularly important. This roundabout is not suitable for children at all. The hump in Wilson's Road will slow the traffic going west to Centaurus Road, who seem to currently treat this particular area as a straight through section when the traffic is lighter. But the one thing I would strongly recommend is a pedestrian crossing on Albert Road, which would allow less confident cyclists to navigate away from the need to go through the roundabout at all. So what you can do is you can essentially go through the pedestrian way to get right around. This particular roundabout has additional issues. For cyclists and pedestrians, actually the most dangerous part is the section across Armstrong Road to 251 Centaurus Road. As a number of submitters have pointed out, the cyclists feel particularly vulnerable here, particularly with the parked cars. For some reason, most of the vehicles actually accelerate out of the roundabout here more than they do in the other sections. It's difficult to tell if a car is leaving Armstrong Road, is going left or going straight across, particularly if you're cycling from Wilson's Road, because the angle is wrong, you can't actually see. Cars are stopping unexpectedly to turn into the mobile station, and other cars are passing them on the inside. This is just after the proposed refuge. So the next car will not be looking for people or who are likely to cross. It'll be looking at the car that's just stopped in front of them unexpectedly. So there are some options for this little section. The easiest one is to extend the no parking and the white painted cycle lane to 251 Centaurus Road at the end of the road marking. This would make a significant and relatively cheap difference to the safety of cycling in this area. There are other options. You could extend the central barrier past the mobile entrance, so there's no right-hand turn from Centaurus Road into the petrol station, or you could make Armstrong Road left out only and close the gap in the middle of the road. I think that Spokes is really happy that we've been able to come and speak to you today. And we fully support any further cycle infrastructure in this area as resources permit. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And have we got that material on hand? What you've just said?
I've written this and I can send it to you.
Can you?
Yes.
Just because, you know, it's hard to take in, you know, when we're not looking at the map and understanding what you're saying. I can't tell you how much we agree with you that this intersection's absolutely terrible. And I think Armstrong Ave should be cut off entirely. I don't think we should be doing, you know, I just don't think people should be going in or out of Armstrong Ave. It's so unexpected, attached to a roundabout in the weirdest way possible. It's frightening. Never mind the preschool on the corner there. We're very glad that you came. Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask if there's any questions. Yes, Tim.
This is part of the long bays and short bays and has been for a hell of a long time. I'm just looking at, and this is the first iteration because, you know, obviously we've got budget constraints and there'll be feedback and a time to kind of look at going forward again. But I'm just looking at Albert Terrace. So Armstrong is a stop sign. And what are your thoughts about Albert Terrace being the same? So people, because a lot of the feedback I've had from parents, I've gone and looked at and Carolyn and I attended and I think you came, Care, as well with regards to the school, etc. That they look right when they're leaving Albert Terrace and don't look and are already travelling when they're going around the corner. So it's very dangerous for children and their caregivers, etc. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not a traffic consultant, so I'm not sure. But in terms of that, I don't think you normally have stop signs going into a roundabout. So, I'm more concerned a wee bit further back into Albert Terrace. In actual fact, finding a way of getting across there in a safer way, particularly when you have when you've got the petrol station on that corner as well. So what you've got is you've got people coming around, you've got people coming in and out of the petrol station. You've got people trying to turn right into there. So I'm not sure that that's the particular concern in terms of the stop sign.
Yeah, okay.
I loathe pedestrian crossings. I think they're incredibly dangerous. Loathe them. I'd much rather have a traffic island so that people can concentrate on looking one way and then the other. I think pedestrian crossings give people a false assumption of security and safety. I think they're terrible. Got any questions?
Just to say thank you to Spokes for coming along. I think this is the first time we've had Spokes come along to us this term, actually.
Yep.
And we do a lot of this kind of work, and it is actually really good to have someone from Spokes, someone with that perspective come and talk to us. I guess realistically, we often have this problem where submitters come in, particularly at this stage in the process, and say, look, you know, we would love to see what I guess we would all consider to be best practice outcomes, but we're working in an environment that is not best practice in terms of the past 40 years of development compared to what we would do now. For me, the question today is going to be, does this move us closer to that goal than further away? So from a Spokes perspective, obviously, you know, like I would love to be able to say, look, let's put lights in, let's do that. Unfortunately, I don't have the magic wand with the budget to do that. From a Spokes perspective, do these changes take us closer to something that's better for active modes or further away?
They take us closer. It is a step forward. It will help. These changes will help. As I say, there's one little bit that you probably do need to do, and that you know, the cheapest and easiest way to help that one is just extending the bike lanes a little bit.
Okay, we can concentrate on remembering. Sam, have you got some notes on this? We're passing over to, is Tony going to be here? Okay, oh, right, that's cool. So Tony was listening to that because it's very hard to picture it when you don't know. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing what you've written. You know. Is there any questions online, Mel? And Lee, sorry, Mel and Lee, any questions?
I just, if we could just tease out a bit more about the no parking as long as 251, just in terms of the merits of that. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
So the problem in that particular section is that there's a whole lot of confusing things happening at the same time. So what you end up doing is you go through the roundabout and then you're starting along, is it West Centaurus Road? You know where I am, and the petrol station is opposite.
Yeah.
And then a car comes around the roundabout and you've got to come out into the traffic to get around the parked car. And that's where things go wrong. So it's really, yes, if you have a look at you've got it up there. You see where those two cars are parked in the diagram? That's.
Let me just share it with Lee.
And if we could share it with Tony too.
You see, you see where those two cars are parked on Centaurus Road, and in actual fact, you can get a car parked even closer to the intersection. And you see where you've got a car that'll turn right into the petrol station there, and you've got people coming out of Armstrong Avenue. You see how it becomes really dangerous for cyclists when there's too many things happening in the same space.
So removing that parking.
Yeah, I get that, and if we can get some more lane definition heading into the roundabout, I think that's great as well. Just in terms of setting the tone as you're approaching the roundabout.
Approaching the roundabout would be really useful to have more painted lines as well. But that particular section coming out of the roundabout is where I find it's the most dangerous.
Tony, can you see what is being talked about? Do you want to unmute Tony?
Sorry, I was just finding my buttons there. Yes, I can. Yeah. So we can extend the yellow lines down there. I think original requests were for the cycle lanes to be extended, but that's that's sort of a bigger piece of work. But no stopping lines, we can certainly do that.
I would prefer that, it's just a wee bit of white paint going, not the green stuff, but the white paint down there as well would help. It just pushes the cars over a little bit more.
Yeah.
and stops them going inside of the other car that's stopped.
Do you understand that, Tony?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we can look at that area through the detailed design. We'll have to resolve no stopping though. That's a sort of a separate thing. But yeah, white markings we can cover off in detailed design.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just been reminded that when you present the report, Tony, you'll be able to talk more about it. But I did want to make it, because I'm not fully au fait with what Anne's saying, but I am now better because of the map. I just wanted to make sure that you understood what was being said. Thank you very much, Tony. Anne, anything else?
That'd be fine, thank you very much.
It's very good to see you. Can I just say that this is one remark off the top of my head. Increasingly, I'm seeing people my age and obviously younger, and right across the age spectrum using Māori when they can. And I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to Celia. Hello, welcome. And thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. Cheers. Kia ora koutou, ko Celia Tokuingwa, no Hillsborough aho. Thank you very much for hearing my kōrero today. I want to address the issues of speed, pedestrian crossings, budget and vulnerable users.
Oh, that's easy.
Multifaceted.
Go for it.
So this project obviously appears to be financially ring-fenced, and I appreciate that there are budgeting implications, but what is a bit frustrating as a resident is it appears that this then has a narrow scope without consideration for any of the other potential projects that could be going on through other pieces of work in the near or distant future. For example, developing more cycle lanes, the speed limit in that area, and also just the speed of traffic. I know it's not in this kind of piece of work, but the speed of traffic coming down from Hillsborough Hill, it increases the speed a lot. Like cars are going a lot faster than 50k an hour down there. So, a bit of forethought from council could mean that these are all considered together rather than a bit of a piecemeal job. And so that's a frustration as a resident in that area. For reference, I live up back on Mount Vernon Park. So come down Hillsborough Terrace every day. I bike, I walk, I scoot with my kids, I run, I drive a car. I used to drive a bus, used to be on a motorbike. So I've had experience in all those kind of road user situations. But for a suburb, this is quite a high use area with a high number of vulnerable users. There are children going to 4 different schools. We've got Steiner, St Martin's, Cashmere High and Hillview. And I've also seen a couple of children to Opawa. We've got the kindergarten, Opawa, St Martin's kindergarten. So there are people travelling across St Taurus Road and down Armstrong Terrace or Crescent. And then there's the early childhood centre on the corner now. There are children, adults, cyclists, dog walkers all heading towards Hanson Park. We have people going to the bus stops. We have cyclists navigating the roundabout. Absolutely support your submission there too. The mobile vehicles, cafe users, elderly going into the hairdressers, takeaway customers, there's quite a lot of different people coming into that area. Now, the OECD Best Practice Urban Safety Report discusses a number of different cases from around the world and states that the lives of the most vulnerable road users are those walking and cycling, and they are often the most at stake. So pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists account for the vast majority of traffic deaths in cities globally. So when we're talking about speed, we know that speed is the main issue. And yes, these speed bumps are going to slow traffic into the roundabout, but as mentioned, there is still more work to be done. I would like to see that there is a reduced speed limit for the roundabout. And I know this has been mentioned, but I do think this is a key element to this, which is being overlooked or put into another piece of work. So when speed increases, the risk of crash and its severity increases as well. One of the guidelines in the Stockholm Declaration includes establishing a 30km/h limit where there is a mix of vulnerable road users and motor vehicle traffic. And I think this area would be an ideal area for that. It is well established that a 1 decrease in average speed results in approximately 2% decrease in injury crash frequency, a 3% decrease in severe crash frequency, and a 4% decrease in fatal crash frequency. So what that translates into is, so from a 50 km/h zone down to a 30 km/h zone, there is approximately a 40% decrease in injury crash frequency, a 60% decrease in severe crash frequency, and an 80% decrease in fatal crash frequency. So it's quite a significant drop there. And this also correlates with our New Zealand data. The national statistics tell us that so far in 2022, that on local roads of 50 km/h, there have been 42 people have died, compared to local roads with 30 km/h limit to 1 death this year. So, there is a significant decrease. That's not going into the details of how, if it was a vehicle crash or a pedestrian or whatever, but I think those statistics are good enough to help us understand that this is actually going to save a lot more lives. So I do want to acknowledge the email sent out that said that speed limit will be part of another piece of work, but I appreciate this is not part of the scope for this project. I would therefore like to see in the recommendations of this report that it is recorded as an area to definitely have a 30 km/h limit for future. I propose from Hillsborough Terrace all the way through to Ramahana Road, and I'm not sure how far up on the Wilson Road that would be open for discussion. So with the OECD report, it was, when I was reading it, it was talking about a number of different cities around the country or around the world that are doing great things. And it's a combination of, it's not just one thing, it's speed is a key one, reducing speed, but then there's also the way they do pedestrian crossings. So some of it's not, like I know you were saying, Carolyn, that pedestrian crossings can be a false sense of security. There are different ways of doing it, having a pedestrian crossing into a middle point so that they are still looking one way. So there are different options around that. But yes, lights could be a good future point. The staff response regarding the zebra crossings, where there were 17% of respondents supported zebra crossings, it said a driver's primary focus in this location is likely to be on navigating the roundabout, not pedestrians crossing the road. A zebra crossing would only be considered if installed on a raised platform to increase their prominence and significantly reduce vehicle speeds. So this treatment is, or this is outside of our scope. So I have two thoughts on that statement. The current proposal, therefore, doesn't actually help pedestrians, according to that comment, because the primary focus of the drivers is on the roundabout. So by doing this, how are we, if they're still focused on the roundabout, how are they going to be focused on the pedestrian if it hasn't been significantly altered? Does that make sense from the comment? Yeah, so the solution is not actually going to help pedestrians a huge deal. Yes, there's going to be a bit of slower speed coming into the roundabout, but pedestrians are still at risk because the drivers are still focused on the roundabout. Second point of contention is that this option is not even being considered as there is no budget. That's the main reason probably. So my question is, if there was budget, would this be tabled? Would we be getting a pedestrian crossing or would we be getting lights? And if the answer is yes, then we need to be rethinking this and going, okay, well, we need to coordinate with some of the other projects and make this happen as one piece, because doing these piecemeal pieces of work, okay, there might be little bits of help, but we actually want to see, I think you addressed it before in your talk, Kerr, that, we need to be thinking about the whole picture. And I think that's where we're falling short here. The last thing I'd like to talk about is one of the vulnerable groups, which is children. I have two children myself. I have a just turned 7 and just turned 9-year-old. We bike or walk or scoot to school every day. So we are crossing that road, rain, shine, hail, storms. The style of crossing proposed still leaves children with some similar problems, to be honest. Cars have to slow down more, yes, but there will still be more congestion for children to navigate because of the slowing down. Children still don't have the right of way I think Anne alluded to that, you know, we're still prioritising the car over pedestrians and other more vulnerable road users. And I think we really need to change that thinking. So, you know, children still don't have the right of way and will at times have to decide when to cross between cars during those peak times. So for me, that is putting my children more at risk. I watched a child on a rainy day just a couple of weeks ago, just standing there waiting to cross the road. Obviously, there are no crossings into that island in front of Armstrong Ave, and he's just waiting. No one stopped. You know, they just keep going, and he was just standing there in the rain, waiting, not knowing what to do. It's harder to judge the speed of cars, and but it happens all the time. It's a really interesting place to just go and stand for 10 minutes and watch the children navigating that zone. Some of them are running across because, you know, there's a small gap. And I know that this is going to slow a little bit, but even the cars that are exiting out, they don't have the speed bump. So children are still going to have to navigate that speed. And so the Armstrong Ave one up there, coming from Armstrong Ave across towards the Mobile, children are still going to be navigating those fast cars, and that's where we have to cross every day, and you know, it's not actually slowing them down. So I don't believe this is actually resolving all problems, only on one side of the road but not the other. So in the words of my daughter, I want to go to school by myself, but the road is too hard to cross, is what she said to me. So under the current proposal, I'm pretty unlikely to let her go by herself, mainly because that Armstrong to the centre island would still be too dangerous in my eyes. You know, there'll be a point where she will be able to, but right now that would be no. I would have to go with her each time. So my written submission addressed a number of other things, but I've just focused on these. But I'm, you know, as a keen cyclist as well, it is difficult navigating that roundabout. I'm pretty confident, but I see a lot of close calls in there, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen more accidents. Thank you very much for your time. Kia ora.
Thank you. I think the reason why we haven't seen more accidents is because there's no sense of security, and even the most adventurous boy, you know, 7-year-old or 8-year-old, is frightened. I'm not sure that's the way the kids should be going to school. We do understand the problems, and the traffic engineer understands the problems. Yeah. They do. It's the finances are the finances, and I wouldn't like you to think that the traffic engineers wouldn't do some of these things if they didn't have the capacity. Yeah. Because I'm absolutely sure they would. Questions, Tim?
Yeah, look, we've been fighting for a long time with slower speeds, and Wakakatahi has actually changed their view, although it's about 30 years too late, but at least it's happened. So we are getting a lot of areas slowed down. So we can now do that, but there are some areas that they still won't let us do it.
Right.
So we are restrained. So it's not a council thing. It's
them.
It's the Wellington.
Is this area an area that they're not letting us do it?
Well, it may be. That's the question I'm going to be asking staff, because of Centaurus Wilson's Road is so, but we'll ask those questions. Just with regards to the raised platforms, Tennyson Street we've been debating about for a long time, just passed, but what we wanted is, and what was agreed to was the raised platforms further out to slow cars down further out, and remind them that it is a slow speed, and there should be, so rather than just one bump leading into it, there's a couple. And so I was just thinking with regards to this, would you support in the next iteration of this that we put further bumps further out to slow cars as they're coming in?
I think, you know, the bumps are going to slow them down coming in. Yes, further out, but I think it needs to go across the whole road.
Well, I was just looking.
You know, like I don't think it's one that's they're still gonna speed off.
And I guess that's where the Wilson's Road sweep, and when you're going east onto Centaurus, and we've been there a number of times and watched them accelerate. So maybe that's something we ask staff about, having one just almost to the east side of Armstrong Ave. So when they're going through, they actually can't accelerate out. They've actually got to slow down again, which would then make that a lot safer for those kids to cross.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, but it could be a temporary solution.
But this is the first kind of, and there will be other.
Have you got your submission in writing?
Yes, I can email it through.
We can send, you can send it through, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is yeah, I had a long one in my, yeah. And yeah, this is extra.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, Mel?
Thanks for all of that. I think, yeah, we do all agree with you, and really having traffic lights would be the obviously safest option, even though those are not perfect as we see in other areas. But my question is, would you like to see this proceed in the meantime, or would you rather that we hold off on this and then get together a much $1 million sort of budget so we could look at putting lights in?
Oh, it's a hard question, isn't it? The pressure's on.
The
You know,
lights are
like
complicated too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tricky because I appreciate there'd be, money would just disappear if it doesn't get done. My concern is if we do this, then we'll never get lights.
When you leave here, go up to Thorrington School and look at their lights, because every day there's someone who charges through. It's often a parent. They've dropped their kids off. One job done.
Yeah. And like looking overseas, I don't even know if lights are necessarily the best option either. Like, I think it's just a complete road layout change. Like you suggested, maybe Armstrong needs to be removed from the equation. And the mobile entrance and exits. But become a pedestrian, street or something. Yeah, look, I think, and there'll be better experts than, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm a road user coming in for this, but I think looking overseas would be a good idea to understand, okay, what would other countries be doing to manage this kind of situation? But I think it does go further than just the roundabout. I think, there's speed coming down Wilson's Road, and there's speed coming down Centaurus off the hill. Those are two, even though it's tricky coming from the west on Centaurus, so past St Martin's School, traffic is still a little bit slower coming in that way because they've already had that corner that they've had to turn, and it's a bit more narrower. Whereas as soon as you come out on the other side of Centaurus, it widens up and there's no bike lanes and cars just hoon, and then you get pinched in, and then, there's bigger issues.
I'm disappointed with what you said about Centaurus Road, because it was one of the thrills of my life. Those trees being planted.
Yeah.
Up the top of Centaurus Road near where you live, slowed the traffic down markedly and obviously for years.
Yeah.
And you're telling me now that they're speeding up again.
Yeah. Well, my kids we struggle to cross the road and around there. Yeah.
Because the drop in this, when they planted those trees, the drop in the traffic speeds just went boom. Kia.
No, I think we've covered everything really comprehensively, and just thank you very much for coming in and taking the time. And I guess, as you say, it is a difficult question for us to consider when we get to the consideration of where we go from here.
Lee. Got a mouthful.
Did we interrupt your breakfast?
That's what everyone was thinking.
Yeah. Not one to hold back.
Look at him.
Funny.
He has got to say. Never mind, he might have something to say in a minute.
No, I just, it's all been said, but you've heard my concerns that we're using different treatments on different roundabouts. You've heard me on that soapbox. I'm really disappointed that we're looking at Dyers Pass and Cashmere Road, and we're actually looking at pedestrian crossings there, and here we're not. So I think that itself is worrying for me, that we're looking at different, on the same corridor, we're looking at different types of treatments, which for me is really concerning, because that itself causes confusion when we haven't got continuity. So I think we are, I am underwhelmed by what I see here too. So I do share your concerns.
I think that's a really key point, Lee, because, across the city, if drivers are using all the, variety of avenues to drive, and it's different ways that they have to approach, that is confusing. We see some pretty challenged drivers out there anyway. We don't want to challenge them more. by having totally different setups. So yeah, there should
Correct.
be some consistency across the city. Like what is the transport plan going forward? You know, what does our transport plan actually say? How is it prioritising pedestrians? And I actually did go online trying to look at stuff last night. There was one from 2014 that I could find, like a 30-year plan, but I couldn't find anything more recent. I was like, well, is that our latest one? Things have changed. I think the council was a bit more aware around the prioritisation of pedestrians and other kind of more vulnerable road users, but I couldn't find anything easy on the council website or just through Google, which was saying what is our vision for pedestrian and vulnerable road users safety in our city. So yeah,
I think to be fair, I just think to be fair, it's terrible to say, but I think the earthquake dislocated a whole bunch of things. We know, for instance, that the deep ditch gutters were due to be finished out the door this year. And of course, we haven't done a deep ditch gutter since the earthquake. So, but the budget is just, it's terrible for people to say it to people like you, but the budget's been killed, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the cycleways, which the government has paid quite a lot for. Anyway,
yes.
I just want to thank you though. You were really thorough and you knew such a lot. And it was very good of you to come. And I just want to emphasise how much we agree with much of what you say.
Thank you.
And we're just conscious of the bank account, that's all.
No, I hear you.
And it's really hard. It's really hard. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Tony, do you want to step into the den?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Hello, Tony.
Hi.
You've walked into the lion's den on a few occasions recently. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder so that we can. Yeah, oh, definitely. I was going to get a mover in a seconder, but I won't. I'll wait for a moment. Tony, you've got the floor and take us through one or two of those issues. We do understand your position and we understand what they've said to us as well. Thanks very much. You can have a go.
Okay, so yeah, the speed is certainly being considered as part of this wider plan. So the recent legislation change to allow 30k speed limits around schools, and that can kind of stretch wider than it used to be able to stretch. So it's not just outside the school gate, which is great. It'll likely be a mix of variable and permanent speed limits, but that'll all be included in part of the interim speed management plan, which is still being worked on. Regarding continuity, I know it was mentioned about Dyer's Colombo. That's one of our high risk intersections, so it's a completely different budget and it's a lot more extensive work that can be looked at those intersections. So this is being done under our school safety budget, and yeah, it is a lot more modest. So we're trying to do what we can, but yeah, understand the wider issues and understand the ongoing concerns. So it's essentially, yeah, an interim, a first step. We think it'll make a big difference, but I understand it's not going to solve all the issues that the residents have and the wider issues which we can still look at. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Is there anything that you can take on board from what has been said? Does Armstrong Avenue absolutely have to have an exit?
It can be considered to be changed. We weren't looking at it as part of this piece of work, but if it's something that the residents want, we can certainly look at it as a separate project. We have tried to make some marking changes there just to highlight the cycle lane, and that in conjunction with the lower speeds that we're hoping to achieve through here will improve safety. But yeah, I guess it's not a definite no, it's just something we haven't really explored yet.
And in hearing what Anne and Celia said, you would have understood some of the things they raised. Have you got any comments on what they discussed?
The zebra crossings. So taken a little bit out of context, my comments there. So with a zebra crossing, what we're concerned about is if it's flush with the road, young pedestrians particularly sort of just can get the impression they can charge on through there without looking, and drivers might not necessarily be aware of them. So in roundabouts like this one, we've tried to bring the speeds down. We've put the island crossings in, so they only have to cross one lane of traffic at a time, but the onus is still on the pedestrians to check and make sure it's safe. And the drivers may well see them as well, but we don't want to rely on the drivers having to see them. So it's something that we wouldn't do unless they were put on raised table platforms, which is quite a significant cost with all the drainage and extra construction associated with that.
I guess something to add about zebra crossings is that I recently spoke to one of the school community police officers, and she was saying to me, it's actually really hard to train kids to use zebra crossings because I guess the same issue that we have with signals is people just drive through them. And if a child was to kind of, I guess, think like, oh, that person will stop for me, and walk out, obviously some terrible things can happen. So they've kind of said to us as well, it's, in special circumstances, please obviously put zebra crossings in, but in examples like this, it's hard for them to even teach the kids how to use them correctly.
The way I fully believe that. I think the average accident for kids going to school is the 6 to 8 year old boy. It always seems to be boys, not us girls, who think that psychologically that a zebra crossing is there for him. And he's just going to go zoom and not look and bingo. I think that's why pedestrian crossings are so dangerous. But having said that, we're still seeking advice from the community. Mel, I'm going to ask you, Lee, as well, and see how you're going on this. Go, Mel.
Tony, I was just wondering if you could explain to us just why Dyers Pass is a high priority compared to the St Martin's roundabout, just so it's clear for everyone.
Yeah, it's to do with the risk and the accident history there. So it is one of the it's on our, I guess, top 100 list of the most critical sites, and those are the ones that get the funding allocated to them first. There's a high number of accidents at that site, serious and injury crashes, and a lot involving cyclists. So I don't know the stats necessarily, but all those intersections are identified based on a set list of criteria, and they're undertaken as part of a separate piece of work.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Carolyn, I've got 3 other questions, if that's okay. The second one was for Tony too, and I've forgotten actually the answer to it because we did have it explained, but it seems to me that care crossing, because we've just put in 2 care crossings today, would be a great solution, obviously, for people to help kids get across the road. And I know it's not really used now, but can you just remind us why that is?
I think a lot of it was to do with resource. So St Martin's School already has 2 care crossings. They've got one on Centaurus, just to the west of the roundabout, and they've got one outside the school on Albert Terrace. And my understanding was that used to be sort of run in conjunction with Rudolf Steiner School, which but it hasn't been used for many years as a care crossing. So that's why we're proposing to change the markings so there's no ambiguity there going forward.
Yeah, okay. And with the 30K that will come through around the school eventually, I was wondering, do you have any idea at the moment what kind of area that will actually cover, or not sure yet?
Not specifically, but on major roads like Centaurus Road, it's likely that it would be a variable 30 along there rather than a permanent. But I can't say for sure the extent yet because I don't know. But once that's all, that plan's sorted out, the public will have the opportunity to be consulted on that.
And last question, if you had a limited budget, what would the best sort of solution be for that roundabout because obviously council does prioritise pedestrians and cyclists wherever we can. So what do you know what that would be?
I don't know the exact best option, but things that would be considered would be signals or raise platforms around it to get the speeds down. But that would need further work to confirm what's the best option with that layout.
Great, thanks.
We've only got 5 minutes left because of the awards ceremony that we've got coming to us. So I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder, and I'm going, Callum, you don't show up on my screen, but I just want to, I hear you're back. Is there any questions you want to ask?
No, I think everything's been covered off through other people's discussions. I'm starting to feel quite fatigued, Carol, and I'm probably going to put my apology for the next.
I understand we've got a lot of sick people on the screen, and Tony's one of them. I'd like to thank you, Tony, before I go away, because in the olden days, if you were as sick as Mel, and you sound it, you'd normally be feet up watching Coronation Street instead of presenting to us. So thank you for being here. That's what I wanted to say. Yes, Tim. Well, be quick. We are pushed.
Thank you. Tony, just with regards to the follow-up on this, what's the timeline for the review of the safety and the results? What would that be?
We'll be looking at it as soon as it goes in. We'll be down there observing it and getting some feedback from the school. We'll probably get some speed counts done maybe a month or two after it's gone in.
Told to shut you up.
With regards to the slow community community areas, I know that the area between Hillsborough, Albert Terrace and St Tourist Road is being looked at as a 30k community area. So I was wondering, could that be tied in with regards to looking at the reduced speeds around the roundabout and also towards Huntsbury?
Yeah, they're looking at the plan for the whole city. So it'll all be tied in some way. I don't know the extent of each of the individual areas, but I'll ask the question.
Staff are coming to see the board on Monday.
Oh, great. Okay, we can talk about that. As on Tennyson Street, when we talked about the right.
You're pushing it.
Well, you know.
I know. We've
been working on this for years.
Yeah, so, I know, but we've been asked to, hurry up.
Just on the lead-ins, could we look at putting humps in, like we talked about the cushions or the pillows, sorry, on Tennyson Street? Could we look at that, pushing those further out so it's slowing the traffic as they're coming into the raised platforms to make it safer? I have a number of others, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, we can look at it maybe as a second step if we're not achieving enough speed change with this. So at this point, we probably don't want to put any more in, but we can certainly consider it down the track if there's ongoing issues.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we captured the discussion around the potential parking removal.
Yeah.
And if that needs to come back to the board, just make sure that that's captured, because I guess some of the other stuff can be detailed design, but that would have to be a board decision. So whether that needs to be in the resolution or not, I'm easy eyes it either way, but as long as that's captured for us as an action point.
We discussed the removal of the parking going in, didn't we, Tony? And that you thought that was probably okay.
Well, yeah, I'm just not sure on what I need to do, whether it needs to be a separate report or it probably does. So
yeah,
I'll just have to double check with the.
People are nodding, Tony.
Yeah,
nodding.
Yeah, they're nodding. They're nodding. So
yeah,
but Tony, just to be quick, you've taken it on board, haven't you?
Yeah, I've written it down, and I'll try and get that to you as a bit of an urgent report before the last meeting.
Excellent. I'm sorry to rush everybody. We've got an awards ceremony. Sorry, we've got an awards ceremony, which is really important for people, and it's at a certain time, and the staff have to clean this room up. So I'm really sorry for rushing you, but there's no getting around it. I want to move her in a seconder, please.
I'm happy to move, Carolyn.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay.
Seconder, Tim. Is there any further discussion? We're all really, really conscious of the inadequacies. We are. It's needs must.
Can I just clarify, are you moving just the staff recommendation as it stands, or you are moving to also request that staff come back with a report on the, do you want to add that request for staff to come back with advice on the additional no stopping
Can you
lines?
move that? Can you put the wording in
Yeah,
on there?
yeah.
Is that all right with Tony? We're just
Can we
adding
just-
that.
Can we also just look at the, sorry, just very quickly, just if we can look at the approaches to see if the cycle lanes can go a little bit further out from the roundabout as well. I think that would be, it was talked about in the same issue. So if we could just explore if the segregated cycle lanes could protrude a little bit further from the roundabout.
You understand that, Tony?
Yes, so that's just along that same section by.
Yeah. Is that
Well,
all right with you?
I mean, I can get advice on it.
Yeah,
but that needs full council approval to put cycle lanes in. So it's not something we can do quickly.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so to clarify, is the board as a whole wanting that piece of advice to come back as well?
Hang on, I'm thinking about
Yeah.
it. I think we should leave that as a separate issue if it requires the whole of council. Tony, I would like you to have a think about that and see if you can come back to us with a proposal about those cycle lanes, the separate cycle lanes going further out than they are at the moment. I don't want to add it to the resolution because we haven't had a good discussion about it.
Okay.
And it's a part A, so it means we should be thinking seriously about it. Can I have your okay? I know it's added work, that you will bring it back, the discussion, you'll bring it back to us.
About the cycle lane?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. So the resolution is as it is with the addition of the request for.
With an addition to request staff advice on extending the no stopping lines on 251.
Yeah. And we have an understanding that she'll come back to us with the cycle lane because it's part A and too complicated to add. Okay, or I'm putting the resolution with that addition that I told you about and with the understanding with Tony on the length of the cycleway. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Against? No against. Carried. I'm sorry I didn't come back to you and you two enough for further discussion. It's just we really are under the gun. I'm going to dodge members exchange. Yeah, we did too. We did it. Sorry. God, my brain. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's been great to see you. The submissions were wonderful from the community, all three of them, and it was great to hear from you all. And we'd like to have done more with them, and I promise you we will next time. I look forward to seeing your two things in writing, so we've got a record of them. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks all.
Oh, closing karakia. Sorry, closing karakia. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Which one shall I say? Oh. Kia tau te Māori o runga, kia tau te Māori o raro, pāhirisia te ture wairua, hei pō arahi I a tātou e tēnei wā, kia tika te whakaro, kia tika te kupu, te hei Māori ora. Thank you.